Hi, and we are live. My name is Deanne Battle, and this is the Composite Season 2, Episode 13. I didn't do an episode all last month, so I think I'm still saying like Happy New Year, maybe. But it's been a slow start for me. Glad to be back. So what have I been up to? Really resting. Really have been super tired. And so I'm getting like my thyroid and stuff checked. So I've just been like totally out of commission. So I hope everybody's had a strong, seeing some wonkiness out here. I hope everyone's had a strong start to the year. 2024, Pluto in Aquarius, a lot of things being exposed, a lot of revelations. And so haven't been on in a while. I thought about setting up the StreamYard, but I thought rather than mess with that, it would be just better to get on camera. So here I am. But I'll be going back to that, because the StreamYard can help me show articles and things like that, help me facilitate a little bit more, which was what I was experimenting with at the end of last year. But yeah, I've just been trying to rest up. So feeling a lot better now. Still a little tired, but like I said, getting my thyroid checked, working on that. Other things, some new developments in writing. So nothing to reveal just yet. But yeah, I'm thinking this is going to be a really pivotal year for me. So I'm super excited. And I'm super humbled by the artists that I've had an opportunity to work with, by the artists that appreciate my work. So I'm feeling very happy, very blessed. So that's great. What do I want to talk to you all about tonight? I want to talk about institutions. Because we're seeing a lot of institutional disruption, a lot of institutional weakness. People are questioning institutions. And so when I was thinking about the topics that I wanted to share and get opinions on, if somebody joins the live, I doubt someone will join the live because it's after 11:30 p.m. on the East Coast on a Saturday. But I'm open to that if someone would like to join. But when I was thinking about the different topics, the situation with the president at Harvard, there's some updates there. Things that are happening in terms of geopolitical tensions and escalations that especially will affect us here. Just at the moment, I'm pretty U.S. centric. I'm trying to expand my knowledge base there. But again, I've really tried hard with this show to not comment on things that I know absolutely nothing about. So I think I'll try to stick to that. And then other stuff. The upcoming election in November, things and trends that I'm seeing there. And so all of that being said, I felt like, a lot of this is related institutionally, in terms of who gets to run institutions, who gets to question institutions. And I thought that would be a good thing to talk about tonight. So I don't know how long I'm going to be on. I was thinking about a half hour, but just depends, I guess, on how long this inquiry / rant, how long that goes. So we shall see. But yeah, glad to be back. And what I want to do tomorrow is post the show schedule. I think if I take Sundays and I post the show schedule, beforehand, I think that'll be helpful for anybody who might be interested, but more helpful for me. I think I've mentioned my schedule changed because it's a new semester for me. I'm a community college instructor, and I'm on a split schedule now. So depending on the day, I have daytime classes that I'm helping support, and then I have an evening class. So it just depends on the day of the week. And so I was thinking, okay, move us to, a daytime show, which was my plan. But what ended up happening is that I'm still, in the first couple of weeks here trying to figure out that split, right? Because if you have a day where, okay, I'm working in the daytime, commute home, and then the next day that you're working at night, I'm like, oh, I haven't had this before. I've taught in the day, I've taught at night, but I've never done both in the same semester. And so I'm just trying now to figure out a schedule, right, that has a healthy balance, but that I can build consistency, which is something which has probably been the biggest obstacle to running this show. And so, I share that because I'm not like a professional broadcaster, media personality, influencer, anything like that. I'm just someone who, I just like to keep up with current events, some gossipy type stuff. In speaking of institution or whatever, there's a lot going on with like beefs, which is interesting, with Megan Thee Stallion and Nicki Minaj, and that's been, I think for like the past week and some change, excuse me. Sorry, see, still trying to figure out the schedule, in addition to being tired, so my apologies. But yeah, that's been erupting, and I do think that there are, ties and connections institutionally, and so we'll talk about that a little bit. Yeah. So I think I have hopefully some interesting observations to share. So I'll go ahead and get started. The issue with Dr. Claudine Gay at Harvard, she testified before Congress. The university president at the University of Pennsylvania testified. The president at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, she testified. And I think I commented in the past. I thought it was interesting that it was only 3 women on the hot seat, right? They didn't try to even hide that it was, for whatever reason, a gendered attack. But the Congress wanted to question how they're approaching tensions on campus, anti-Semitism on campus, and her answer was highly criticized and maligned. Then there was this scandal with plagiarism. She forgot to omit her some citations, which is why I'm always on my students' ass about that. You never know when stuff will come back to haunt you, even if you're not doing it on purpose. But all of that being said, trustees started to threaten to pull money and stuff, and so she ended up resigning. Right. And it, looked like she was forced out. Now, I don't know how effective or, accepted, her, both effective leadership and accepted leadership. I don't know how that was going for her before she testified before Congress, but it definitely, everything went left after. And so she resigned. And for me, silly me, I'm thinking, maybe that the school can unfortunately take her downfall as a learning point and move forward. And, one particular trustee, I don't know if multiple trustees have pulled the money, but the main guy who, wanted to offer up, and I don't want to say his name because it seems like he's a jackass. He pulled the money anyway, and he said, oh, well, Harvard University, they're just snowflakes, and, I don't want to fund it anymore. And he pulled the money anyway. And so what that tells me is that partially, like, what is the point, right, of being first, right? So she's the first Black female president of Harvard University. What is the point of being the first in these hotbeds of hostility? Because at the end of the day, she was promoted into that role, and it seems like, a really, powerful hub, obviously, in terms of being an academic. That's like the pinnacle. But it's like when they want to get you up out of there, they get you up out of there, period. And I saw that, someone, that I knew tangentially from my past had gotten, tenure, and, she was kind of posting it on social media, like in your face, because, some of her opinions get attacked online. And she was like, well, you can't do anything now because I have tenure. And I'm like, oh, a homegirl is not paying attention to Dr. Claudine Gay, because at the end of the day, if people say, and, she's at a prominent research university too, I'm like, ooh, you might not want to take it that route. And I'll clarify that in a second. At the end of the day, if our society in the United States, it's based on money. So as soon as somebody threatens to pull those resources, even with tenure, you're Black, they'll find a way to get rid of you. That's, so I was just like, this might not be the play. But, God bless. And so when I say that she might not want to go that way, I'm not saying that she shouldn't be outspoken. State whatever you want to state, right? It's for the time being, we still have some little bit of free speech left, so go ahead and use it. But the active taunting of critics is, especially in this current environment, I feel like that can come back very quickly to bite you in the ass. So God bless with that. But I think part of what we're seeing with Dr. Claudine Gay is it's not enough to be a Black face in a high place. You will incur so many costs for that. So it's just like, is it really worth it? In one standpoint, and then another standpoint, you see how much of a fragile and flimsy proposition that is, right? Again, I mean, I don't think, was she even in the job for a full 6 months? Maybe barely 6 months. So, or maybe 7. Because when did she start? June. See, this is why I want to set up the StreamYard so I can have the article next to me. But we'll do that next episode. But yeah, just such a short and fraught tenure, which I'm sure took years off her life, and that's another thing that sucks. Oh, happy Black History Month, by the way. We should talk about that as well. But that's one thing that people who, when they downplay like microaggressions or just anti-Black racism in general, and I'm, just speaking, for the Black experience because I'm a member of that group. I'm not going to put words in other people's mouths. But people really downplay the toll that takes, right? It physically sits in you. It eats at your stomach. Like I know for me, when I'm very anxious, it just, and I've had a couple of jobs, right, where the hostility, it was just so tense. I would just have these fits of crying and I would throw up, like, because it just made me physically ill to know I'm going someplace on a daily basis where I'm hated and attacked. And so in my current job, it's like night and day. I don't feel that way. Like my body's calm. And so part of the reason I think that, I'm just so tired, I think is part of me just releasing all of that poison and negativity, from my last job. But I've experienced it in other places. Not every job, right? So I'm not saying every job has this very over intense racism. That's not where I'm going with it. But I'm saying when you are in that environment and you're somewhat trapped and you can't get out, it takes years off of your life. And so, I really, not knowing the woman, not, again, knowing other elements of her tenure at Harvard, I feel for her. But just be summarily like humiliated and forced to resign only for the trustee to pull money anyway. I just found that so disgusting. And I think that that's probably going to lead at least universities, probably elite private schools as well, to they're probably going to have to do contracts with, donors. And just say, hey, if you, committed $500 million, like, we need to get those dollars in here. Now, if that doesn't happen, then I think these educational institutions on an individual basis need to have a come to Jesus moment in terms of understanding how their particular institution relates to commerce, right? Is it the scholarship and the knowledge and the cultivation of students that leads the day, or is it money, right? Because this guy jerked them around, right, and gave them hell, and he still pulled the money anyway. He's a fucking jackass. I'm sorry, like, that's just what it is. Because you got what you wanted in the end. You wanted her out, and you still pulled the money. So it was never about her. It was about domination and him exerting his power over a powerful institution. That's what it really was about. And then, for him to make commentary about what's being learned there. Is he actually going to the classrooms? Is he interacting and engaging with the professors? Is he interacting and engaging with multiple students from multiple constituencies? Or is he just cherry picking from people that are going to kiss his ass and let him live in an echo chamber and get him to hear what he wants to hear? I mean, is he reading the curriculum? Is he reading the syllabi? I think the answer to all of those questions is most likely no. And so, I think if you are, a wealthy donor and, you do give hefty, donations, I mean, well, let's be honest. Yes, you do have sway and you do have influence, but make informed decisions about what's happening on that campus, right? And it's just, while we're on the subject of, institutions, the way that any, how do I phrase this? It seems to me as if any scholarship aimed at pushing us in terms of our understanding of non-white peoples, any scholarship that pushes us in terms of understanding the insidious nature of white supremacy, all of that gets weaponized, right? So that's why, it was critical race theory. Oh, it's critical race theory in all the schools or whatever, not understanding that the only place that critical race theory is really taught is law school, right? And not even in all law schools. It's referenced to a certain extent in ethnic studies, but when I was in undergrad, I took classes, in African and African American studies. I took classes in Native American studies. I took classes in Latino and Latina Chicano studies. In grad school, I took a class in Chinese literature. Like, these classes are not, I think the one time that, and I went to an Ivy League school. So the one time that critical race theory was mentioned, it wasn't even in the classroom. It was, I was, a diversity peer facilitator. And so I think our advisor for that, and advisor from the DEI department was someone who introduced me to that concept. So it wasn't anything that I ever learned in the classroom. So if you look at critical race theory and the ways in which it was weaponized, number one, and made to seem more ubiquitous than it actually is. And then number two, it really just became a code word, right? As everything usually does. Anything related to, right, non-white people, especially Black people, is just like, oh, critical race theory. And just and the reason that I say this is just like, I am an English teacher. I'm constantly talking to my students about context, right? What is the denotation of a word and what is the connotation of a word, right? So you can see what the phrase actually means, what critical race theory actually means, and then you see how people are using it. And after a while, when someone's misusing something on purpose, right, we can, deduce that they're doing it on purpose, right? To make it a dirty word, a dirty term, to make it negative. And so, okay, so they did that with critical race theory, mission accomplished. So then they moved on to DEI, right? So now everything is DEI. So, anytime a Black person, you got a job, it's just DEI. Like, really? Who's on this now? Matt Walsh and Charlie Kirk and all of these insidious human beings who have platforms. It's just like, anything, if there's a non-white person, again, especially a Black person, that's going to be my focus because that's what I'm working with. It's DEI, right? So it's like, I don't want a Black pilot because if I have a Black pilot, I'm going to die. The fuck? I don't even think that they have a Black pilot on record in the United States contributing or being involved. I won't say contributing to an accident because maybe, somebody was an assistant pilot or whatever, but as the actual cause. Because, if a Black man or a Black woman caused a plane accident, that person's face would be plastered everywhere, right? Because that's how we get down in this country. And so for that to be a comment and people, you feel very free to agree with it, it's just kind of like, wow. But here's the thing. Sorry to ramble for a little bit here. So educational institutions are attacked, right, for critical race theory. Excuse me, my nose is itching. Attacked, for DEI. Like, that's the thing. We don't do that anymore. But here's the thing. You're using that same playbook, but it accelerates because people let you get away with the critical race theory bullshit attack. And you got some mileage off of that. But the people are calling out this whole DEI attack way sooner, and I would argue more viciously. And so that section of the right wing primarily, but not exclusively, but primarily, and I've been existing in this social media sphere for a little while, so that's what I'm thinking about. But they're not getting as much mileage out of it, right? So you're going to have to switch up this play because, all of these synonyms, right, for Black, right? Meaning, it's just, we have to gatekeep these institutional spaces. We do not want Black people here. So then we attack critical race theory. So then we attack DEI. You need a different play because it's just like you're just doing the same exact thing and people are just calling it out, right? Because a lot of us do exist on social media. So we can, spin the block and look like, hey, here's what they wrote on Instagram was the same bullshit. Here's what this person wrote on this social media outlet. It's the same bullshit. And so I don't think that reduces the harm, but I would say it, for a lot of these folks that claim, right, to be these geniuses of philosophy and rhetoric, right, masters of the knowledge and gatekeepers of the knowledge of Western civilization, internal logic in terms of your arguments and your rhetoric, it still counts, right? I am an academic as well. It still counts. And so when you can see these bad faith arguments and see the inconsistency, I appreciate the people that are spending the time to continue to call it out. I just have been feeling fatigued with, the dialogues on social media, and it's just like, I'm going to need to take a break very soon. So that's going to be interesting with the show, because I'll still come on and promote the show and do the show, but I just am tired of the, again, bad faith arguments and false equivalencies that exist with everything. So, moving from educational institutions, I want to talk about the institution of our democracy, or at least what's left of it. What's with all these people, like, if you have any critique of the Biden administration, you're automatically a Trump supporter? What is that? That's, again, there's no internal logic or to that. It's just rhetorically ridiculous, and that's why I like the term blue MAGA that people are using now, because it's just, it's that same visceral vitriol, really, without any logic, right? So you can engage with democracy. If this is a democracy, this is an alleged democracy that we live in, you can engage with that and say something critical. But there are these people online, and okay, I'm going to say something shady. So we see that the Democratic side of the aisle has not allowed us to have a primary. And I'll say this, I've said this since the beginning of the show, I am a lifelong independent. I have never registered as a Democrat or a Republican, purposefully. And I just, again, so I wasn't going to be able to vote in the primary, but, I would appreciate when the people in my family who are lifelong Democrats, when I have friends that are lifelong Democrats, when they would talk about, like, what are they looking at in terms of primary, like, who are they voting for, who they, feel is, a good candidate, so on and so forth. I really appreciated engaging in those conversations. And so the Democratic Party is actually not, letting the voters have a true primary. And which is funny because, again, blue MAGA, anytime you say anything even slightly critical of the Biden administration or Joe Biden in particular, they want to jump down your throat and tell you that you're a Trump supporter, or, tell you that, because you're being critical of Joe Biden, that, you're going to bring Trump back and da-da-da-da-da. But if you all really were proud of his record, if you really felt he deserved a second term, then he would blow through all of these other candidates in a primary. But you won't let the people have one. So what that tells me is that you're aware that he's a weaker candidate, right? I would say a very weak candidate, but like just even a little bit of an admission that you have an issue there, I'd have a little bit more respect for. But so institutionally, right, the Democrats have taken that right as a voter away from the voters, right? So there's no primary. So it really feels like what they're doing is it's like, okay, well, we don't have to spend money on a primary, so let's give, a check to our blue MAGA trolls and let them just attack everyone online, because they're all using the same talking points. It feels like they've just been unleashed on X, which I still call Twitter. The fuck is X? Anyway, so they're unleashed on Twitter, and they're just like, like, oh, you don't like that he did that? Oh, you're gonna vote for Trump. Oh, you're to bring back Trump. Trump. That's all they can talk about. You guys have nothing. What is your platform? That's how I vote. I want to know, when I go to the ballot box, what is this person going to do for me? So I am definitely voting in November, right? Because I live in Pennsylvania. I want to make sure that, anything locally, that happens, I'm voting for that. Any ballot initiatives, I'll try to make sure that I'm informed and vote for that. So I'm definitely going to get off my butt and go vote. But it's just kind of like, they don't even want you to question what's happening. And so how are we going to sit here and say that there are all of these countries in the world that need to be more like us because we're a true democracy? We're not a true democracy. If I can't use my critical thinking skills to question the policies that are being used to govern my life, then that's a fucking problem. That's not a democracy. That's an autocracy. And that's essentially what you're saying. You're just saying, shut up and vote for Biden. And what I'm saying to you is the Democratic Party, you need a better option. That's not a good option. And the Republicans, in my opinion, they've never had an option that was good to me. The first election that I voted in, I've probably said this before, was Gore v. Bush, right? Then there was Bush v. Kerry, and then, so on and so forth. Obama, 2 elections, and then Clinton, Trump, so on and so forth. So it's like, it's another instance where we have an institution, the institution, in this case, of the Democratic Party and the Democratic establishment. You're running the same playbook and the shit is not working. I've been told since the age of 18 that I had to vote Democrat, right, in order to preserve or save democracy. And it's always that same option. And it's like, and my mother said this, you can only get people to vote their fears for so long, right? Sometimes, people need to vote their hopes, like their aspirations. What do they want for their children? What do they want for themselves? What do they see, for this country? And that's not what they traffic in. They traffic in fear. And so when you traffic in fear, perhaps you end up with fearful options. And that's what I think that we're looking at now. I think if Trump doesn't go to jail, or just get utterly bankrupted and destroyed, $83 million. Damn. That was like, wow, $83 million. That's for another day. But if he doesn't go to jail, or get bankrupted or something somehow, like something bad would have to happen on the right side of the aisle for Joe Biden to get reelected again. That's what we're really looking at. Now I've heard some rumors, some conspiracy theories that perhaps another candidate might emerge in May. The names that I'm hearing are either Gavin Newsom or Michelle Obama. I mean, Michelle Obama is not in politics. And Gavin Newsom is bad, but I mean, shit, I'd vote for him before Grandpa Joe. Joe is, I held my nose and I voted for him, but I've always had issues with him. It hasn't just emerged, and that's another thing too. A lot of blue MAGA is like, oh, now you have a problem with Biden? No, I've always had a problem with Biden, but I was just kind of like, well, I don't want this other guy again. But I've been doing that since I turned 18. over 20 years where I'm just going at the federal level, not at, when we're talking about governors and senators. I think there's, with those, we get like a little bit more variety in terms of our options. But like, how long at the federal level do you expect people to just keep saying, oh, this guy is worse, this guy is worse? And then, frankly, with the heavy-handed authoritarian decisions the administration's been making in the last 4 months, a lot of those arguments have gone out of the window. So I'll avoid the big issue, the massive issue, but I'll look at the second massive issue, which is the migration crisis, right? How are we going to handle migrants, who qualifies for asylum, who doesn't? How might we negotiate with our neighbors in terms of possibly, sending people back somewhere, or, keeping people? People need social security numbers, people need jobs, people need housing, right? So there's all of this stuff going on, and the Biden administration has not materially handled that situation better than the Trump administration. Has not. I mean, the only difference is Biden's not talking about building a wall. But how low are we going to set this bar here? Because from what I can see, this country is not doing well right now. And so, yeah, that playbook of, oh, Trump's worse. Like, that's getting old. That is getting old. You need to be doing things that materially improve people's lives, right? That put more money in their pocket, right? People are still suffering from inflationary pressures. They want opportunities for their families. They want better healthcare options, better food options. Our food is modified and it sucks. A friend of mine, he posted on his timeline, and I can kind of see where he's coming from with it, and he's Black, okay? So he posted something to the effect of, oh, if Black lives really mattered, then you would eat better? And I'm like, dude, do you know how many of us are living in food deserts? And just in general, as Americans, the quality of our food is bad. I've had an opportunity to travel, not recently, but I've been blessed to travel in the past. And the one time that I was in France and I went to a KFC, I was so confused because the chicken wing was like small. And so I was talking to my friend about it. I'm like, oh, like, it's small. And she was just like, yeah, because this is just like a regular chicken. It's not a chicken on steroids. And so I was like, oh, wow. Like, it, and it was tasty, it was fine and everything. But it was just like, you realize how much poison that we're putting in our bodies. And it's like, not everybody can afford Whole Foods and, organic, grass-fed, free-range, whatever. And so I see what he means, like, in terms of, oh, if you have the opportunity to do better, you need to do better. But I just wish Black people as a whole that we would, those of us that do make blanket statements, I don't want to make a blanket statement here. Those of us that are making blanket statements, especially in the negative about our people, you just have to realize not everybody's living how you're living. I have middle class or upper middle class friends, and I just have had the privilege of, working in different environments and meeting different people in different parts of the country because I've moved around a lot, and I get to see how people live. And I realized, oh, wow, not everybody lives like me. Not everyone has the same access or the same priorities. And so when you say, oh, if Black lives matter, then, you would take better care of yourself and eat better. it just totally is reductive. But, to be fair, it's social media, so maybe he just wanted clicks and views. But yeah, I was like looking at that statement, like, and I like him a lot. He's a good friend, or, he was a good friend. But I'm like, I low key like wanted to unfollow him because of that. I'm like, what type of right wing bullshit is this that you're typing? But that's another story. But, in terms of the institution of our democracy, it's real ashy, y'all. Like, these two dudes are the only people that we have to put up for the presidency of the United States. I mean, we allege that it's the most powerful role in the world, right? The leader of the free world. So shouldn't more people be signing up to potentially do the job? Oh my gosh, this is a nightmare and a shit show. And while we're talking about institutions, let's talk about the institution of the IRS. I am doing my fucking taxes this weekend because I don't know what war they're going to fund and send my money overseas and then tell me, oh, we ain't got your returns. So, please, as soon as you get your W-2s, I suggest file those taxes, because who knows where everything is going. And, by later this spring, by April 15th, they might just cut it off. They might just be like, oh, well, we can't. We've got to give, Ukraine this. We've got to give Israel that. We've got to bomb Yemen again. We've got to bomb Syria again. Bomb Iraq again. And they're just rabid. They're on a rampage. And I could see a universe where they halted giving our tax returns back because they need to fund these wars. We don't have it. We don't have it. As a nation, we're in debt. As an individual, I'm in debt. I ain't got it. So I will definitely be filing my taxes this weekend. And I suggest, if you can, to do it earlier. And I heard a couple of people that I saw online were saying, oh, hold off on your taxes because the government is going to blah, blah, blah. But I didn't understand what the blah, blah, blah was. And I'm pretty sure the blah, blah, blah doesn't apply to me. I live alone and I don't have children. So, yeah, I want to get, my little ducats in a row and get those from the federal government while I can. Other things that I wanted to discuss. I just had it at the tip of my head. I definitely want to touch on the Nicki Minaj and Megan Thee Stallion situation. Something I was thinking about. IRS. Yeah, the IRS triggered a thought and then I lost it. Anywho, maybe I'll just wrap up here. So Megan Thee Stallion and Nicki Minaj, right? Oh, I remember what it was. I'll come back to that. So there's this rap beef going on. Meg Thee Stallion released a song called His. And the funny thing is, I haven't heard it yet. I've heard like a couple of clips of it, but I want to sit down and like listen to it. Cause like I want to listen to it and walk through it with the lyrics. And so I haven't like listened to it yet. I'm trying to like stay out of it. And then Nicki Minaj did a comeback song called Bigfoot. And so I'll listen to that as well. Again, I just want to sit and listen to the lyrics. I don't have anything against either one of them, but I just, Megan Thee Stallion, I only know a couple of songs. I'm old. But yeah, she's all right. Nicki Minaj, I've never really liked Nicki Minaj's music. I just don't. And then, I'm realizing that this opens me up to attacks because apparently people who follow her are batshit crazy. And that's the part that I really wanted to address, right? Because for me, I don't have a dog in the fight. Like, I'm not going to criticize either woman. I think it's problematic even putting these two black women against each other in this context, to be honest. It's not to say that two black women can't have, as colleagues, have a rivalry and have that, be in the public square. But it's just the way that it immediately devolves to, oh, like, how do I phrase this? To like this overtly like who's a very sexual, like, oh, this one's a hoe or this whatever. Like it's not that they can't take jabs at each other. It's just like, what types of jabs are you taking, number one, and then number two, just the very real fact that Nicki Minaj is surrounded by convicted sex offenders. It's just really hard for me to move past that. I mean, like, so any critique that she has of anyone, that's all I can think about. I can't think about anything else. But I've never really been a fan of her music. It just like that really spastic thing that she does. It unsettles me, and so it's just like, at first I thought like it was for emphasis. Like I really, I've always really loved her verse on Bottoms Up. I feel like if she wasn't on that song, it wouldn't have been a really good song. So she obviously is talented in that regard, but it just, her mannerisms, I just wonder, like, why are you doing that? It's like, it kind of reminds me of the old Warner Brothers cartoons. And if for the super young people that are unfamiliar, those old school Warner Brothers cartoons were racist as fuck. And they used to always have these black people like bucking their eyes and like moving their heads like that. And so it would be kind of triggering sometimes looking at Nicki Minaj, because she reminded me of that. Like when they would have the black cartoons with the watermelon and with the big mouth and like. And so she just has elements that remind me of that. I'm not saying that like that's right. I'm just saying that in my mind, I made that association. And so because I made that association, it's very hard for me to even look at her. And so I'm just revealing that as a bias. That's just a bias. So my bias was, okay, like, whatever Meg is saying, okay, let's go with that. So I realize that's a bias. But that's not to say Megan Thee Stallion is more talented than Nicki Minaj or not, or whatever. I just, I really, I miss Missy Elliott. I miss Da Brat. I miss Foxy Brown. I miss Lil' Kim. I miss Salt and Pepper. So I am not invested really in the current direction of female rap. I have a friend of mine, she had a really great point. She said, what happened to A&R, right? What happened to getting artists and really cultivating their talent, right? So they have more to offer than just these tired ass twerks or talking about their pussy, like, and so because that cultivation isn't happening, apparently the only thing that people are being groomed for are these freak offs, right? So they're not, their talent is not being developed. And so I don't necessarily know the full potential of any of them. But from an institutional level, right, from an industry level, it serves as good distraction, right? Because some of the bloggers that I follow, when it comes to like survival, put a pin in that. That was the thing I wanted to come back to. And in terms of news, they're showing me articles over in the UK, articles out of Sweden, articles out of so many countries, NATO countries, where they're saying that they're preparing for war. So other countries are realistically thinking about war, right? And we're talking about the Rock Nation brunch being canceled. You see how that works, right? So it's just like, oh, the Barbs are going at the Hotties are going at the Barbs, and the Beehive is getting involved because I guess Beyonce and Jay-Z are catching strays from this whole situation. And that's, what's in the feed. And I mean, I follow different things. Like most of the people that I follow, let's focus on X. Most of the people that I follow are either writers, scholars, filmmakers, historians. Yeah, I don't even know if I follow any celebrities at this point. But it's just interesting that all of those, we're about to go to World War III right now. Those headlines that I'm seeing come from overseas, they're not in circulation here, right? The New York Times, the Washington Post, Boston Globe, they're not talking about it. And that's the scary part of it, is that you can create this like industry beef culture, right? That's now spilling over into other things. Apparently Justin Timberlake is taking back his apology. I think he's just trying to sell records anyway. I mean, I said records, streams. But it's just like none of that shit is important. Although, listen, I'm here for the mess. Like, I'm not a super serious person. I'm actually very irreverent. But that shit's not important, right? I want to know, like, what's going down, when I'm driving over the George Washington Bridge, I'm terrified that, like, a bomb or a drone or some shit is going to hit the bridge. I don't like living like that. And I'm living like that because I am held hostage to an administration that's making foreign policy decisions that I do not agree with. And there's absolutely nothing that I can do about it at this moment other than hop on my phone and do a video complaining. Okay? I don't like that. So what I want to wrap up with is I talked about survival. You know what I found interesting, right? When you think about survival and survivalist, why is it that's only one type of person? Like, why isn't it where are the Black people with inclusive? I'm not going to say progressive, because I feel like progressive is another word, like critical race theory is another term, like critical race theory and DEI, that's weaponized now. So I'm not even going to use that word anymore. But where are the Black people with like inclusive mind frames that can give me information on how to survive this crisis? I really want that information. It's just like, what type of packs should I have? What type of gear should I invest in? I think that we're not really too far from that. And it's just, I have a few people and I check out their videos on a semi-regular basis, but they just make all of these blanket political statements that make no sense. Like, I was watching this one guy's video, and it was, it was pretty well informed in terms of he cited his sources, told you where he was getting his information and everything. And then what did he say? I think it was related to the migrant crisis. It was something about, it's like, oh, Biden keeps opening up the border and da-da-da-da. It's just like the Biden administration's, immigration policy is pretty much the same policy Trump had. Again, minus the emphasis on the wall. A few days ago, they were talking about like legislation to shut the border down. Like, what more do you want him to do? It's almost like the right wing, unless you say that you're going to kill these migrants anything else is too soft of a policy. That's really fucked up and twisted. Now, from my standpoint, I'm not against these people at all. I am against constantly sending them to under-resourced areas. You have whole states like Kansas and Nebraska that are actually giving people land, giving people houses if they come to underpopulated areas. So why are people being sent to overcrowded, underprivileged communities in predominantly black neighborhoods? That's the shit I have a problem with. We have, plenty of other spaces that you can send them to, but you're not sending them there because white people would complain. So I have an issue with the baked in racism and selective assistance that's being given to them. But I'm watching the guy's video and he's just like, Biden, he's flooding us with illegals and or whatever. And it's just like, I don't want to say that the administration is not at fault for the current situation, but I also want to be honest about what I'm looking at, right? You can't say that Trump handled immigration well. That's just not, in my opinion, a good faith argument. It's just not. I'm saying it's all bad, and I'm saying we need to do better. But I just noticed that, some of these folks, I'm trying to watch them to get the survival information out of them, and they just go into these political rants. And I'm like, I don't want that from you, because you're not comparing apples and apples, right? All you know is that you're conservative and you don't like Biden. And see, for me, I'm not conservative, I'm not liberal. So I'm not looking at it from that dichotomy. I believe in the dignity of the American worker. I believe in, free speech and critical thinking. I believe in, universal health care and I don't believe children in this country should go to bed hungry or without a roof over their heads. I believe that we've done a terrible job taking care of our veterans and our elderly, right? So those are the types of things that I believe in, and neither party reflects that. So I'm not going to sit here and crowbar my politics into, how do you survive, war or, nuclear holocaust or so on and so forth. Does that make sense? But I noticed that a lot of these folks in that space tend to do that. And so I guess that's not really an institution, but I'm thinking about, right, the institution or the community, right, of people that are interested in this in these issues. That's just something that I noticed. It's just something to think about. All right, it is late. I think I'm gonna call it a night. But if you have the chance to watch this on the playback, thank you so much. I'm gonna post this season 2, episode 13 here, and I posted on my YouTube page. So I'll post the link to all of that. And I will also be posting this, it's Sunday, so this week's show schedule. And I hope all is well. God bless and good night.